Hello, today we are doing Lesson 6, Solving Problems by Finding Equivalent Ratios. And the way today is going to work is there will be a number of exercises that we'll do, but the first one we'll do together so you kind of get an idea. And then we'll read the second one. Edmodo will pause, allow you to work it out, put an answer in, and then we'll move on and I'll provide the answer and you can see if you did it correctly. Okay, so the first one. The Business District Hotel caters to people who travel for different types of business trips. On Saturday night, there is not a lot of business travel, so the ratio of the number of occupied rooms to the number of unoccupied rooms is 2 to 5. However, on Sunday night, the ratio of the number of occupied rooms to the number of unoccupied rooms is 6 to 1, due to the number of business people attending a large conference in the area. If the Business District Hotel has 432 occupied rooms on Sunday night, how many unoccupied rooms does it have on Saturday night? So before we do anything else, what are we trying to figure out? What's this problem all about today? Okay, the problem is about a hotel and people staying there and the ratio of rooms that they stay in. So we always want to keep in our mind what our ratios mean. So one of the things that our ratios mean is if it says that the ratio of the number of occupied rooms to the number of unoccupied rooms is 2 to 5, it means, if we change it around a little bit, for every two rooms occupied, there are 5 rooms unoccupied. It also means for every 5 rooms unoccupied, there are 2 rooms, there are 2 rooms occupied. And that's just the opposite of the 2 to 5. But that's basically what it means. So that's the first thing we want to keep in mind. It also means that then that's for Saturday night. So for Sunday night, okay, and so this is for Saturday night. That's what those ratios mean. For a Sunday night, what our ratios mean is for every 6 rooms occupied, there is 1 room unoccupied. The opposite of that is, I know you're probably staring at this, for every 1 room unoccupied, there are 6 rooms occupied. And that's basically how we can take things and turn them around. I want us to just kind of pay attention to that because it's not something we've talked about very often. Okay, so again, that was just to give us an idea of how to do things. What we would do now is do a tape diagram because, well, hold on. We need to figure out what we're trying to find. So we're trying to find how many rooms were unoccupied on Saturday night. So let's do a tape diagram and let's do one, since we have 2 different ratios here, let's do one for each night. So if we do that, go ahead and take a minute to do that on your paper right now. Okay, so if we do that, it will look something like this. For Saturday night, it was 2 to 5, 2 to 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and Sunday night it was 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 to 1. Now, before we look into the other numbers that we have to work with, let's something from a previous lesson. Do you remember when we talked about trucks and passenger cars? We made tape diagrams, and then we talked about the ratios altogether, what they equal, and how you can move them around. And that's kind of what we did up here. We moved them around a little bit. Let's look at these two different ratios and notice that if we're talking about the same hotel and we're talking about the same ratio of rooms in that there are, if you put our ratio together, on this side we have 7, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and here we have, altogether we have 7. If we put our ratios together. So we're talking about 7 parts on both ratios. That's going to make a difference when we start talking about what goes inside each part of these. In each unit, if you notice, they are still the same size. Not the unit of the bedroom, but the amount. So that's important to note when we start looking at the fact that the Business District Hotel has 432 occupied rooms on Sunday night. So if we were to write that in here, altogether, all these units will come out to 432 that were occupied. Sorry. So if 432 were occupied, we just need to know which one wasn't for that particular one. And then, because these are all the same, these will be the same as well, because they're all pretty much the same, talking about the same types of room. So, how do we figure out 432? There are 6 parts that we need to divide 432 into. And so yes, if you are thinking 432 divided by 6, you would be correct. So right now on your calculator or on your paper, figure out what 432 divided by 6 is. All right, you should now have figured out that it equals 72. So if it equals 72, and then we know that 72 goes inside each one of these boxes as well as this one, that means that there were 432 rooms occupied on Sunday night and 72 rooms were not occupied, which gave us the ratio of 6 to 1. Okay, if we know that there are 72 rooms in this one, then we can put 72 rooms here and 72 rooms in each one of these. 72, 72. So go ahead and do that. Put your 72 in and then go back and answer the question. How many unoccupied rooms does it have on Saturday night? So this is what your paper should look like. You put 72 inside each one of the boxes so that the occupied rooms on Saturday night were 144. The unoccupied rooms on Saturday night were 360. The occupied rooms on Sunday night were 432. The unoccupied rooms were 72. If we go back and answer our question, how many unoccupied rooms does it have on Saturday night? Now we can clearly see they had 360 unoccupied rooms, which is how we got our ratio of 2 to 5. Okay, so that was number 1. Number 2 says, Peter is trying to work out by completing sit-ups and push-ups in order to gain muscle mass. Originally, Peter was completing 5 sit-ups for every 3 push-ups. Then he injured his shoulder. After the injury, Peter completed the same number of repetitions as he did before his injury, but he completed 7 sit-ups for every 1 push-up. During a training session after his injury, Peter completed 8 push-ups. How many push-ups was Peter completing before his injury? So before you do anything else, take a minute to think about what's going on in the problem. And then go ahead and set up some different tape diagrams, perhaps like the ones we did up here that represent the before and after, or perhaps another way. Go ahead and take a minute, try to work it out before you put an answer in, and then put an answer in and we'll see how we did. Hi, well, what I did when I looked at this problem was I started by highlighting and underlining what the problem's asking me to find. And that one was how many push-ups Peter was completing before his injury. Then I took all this information and I started to just kind of pull it out and see what I needed to work with. So before the injury, he had 5 to 3 sit-ups to push-ups. After his injury, he had 7 to 1 sit-ups to push-ups, which stands to reason because he had an injury, his injured shoulder, so push-ups are probably a little harder for him. So it makes sense. That's not important so much. We also know that he completed 8 push-ups after his injury. So, I started by drawing a tape diagram. Next, I labeled my tape diagram, sit-ups and push-ups. And then I said, okay, if he completed 8 push-ups after his injury, then 8 would go over here and fill in this box. Now, because the total number of in the ratio, if you add 5 plus 3, you'll have 8 parts here. Here, 7 and 1, you'll have 8 parts. 8 parts make up our whole. So the number that goes in here also goes into here and also goes into each one of these. So if this one is 8, then these are 8 also. And that's a little bit easier to figure out. This one is 8 times 7. This one is 8 times 3. And this one is 8 times 5. So what it looks like when you put the numbers in is as follows. Okay, so 8 times 5 is 40. 7 times 8 is 56. This one was the one we were given to begin with. And 8 times 3 is 24. Are we done? No. We have to go back and we have to look at the question. This problem's asking me to find the number of push-ups Peter completed before his injury. Before his injury, Peter completed 24 push-ups. And that's a sentence that we need to write down here. If you wrote something different for a sentence, that is okay, as long as this information was the same. So if you wrote Peter completed 24 push-ups before his injury, that works too. If you wrote Peter completed 24 push-ups, that will probably be enough as well. So as long as you put in there that he completed 24 push-ups, now you do need to have before his injury. That won't be enough not to. Okay, on to number 3. Tom and Rob are brothers who like to make bets about the outcomes of different contests between them. Before the last bet, the ratio of the amount of Tom's money to the amount of Rob's money was 4 to 7. Rob lost the latest competition, and now the ratio of the amount of Tom's money to the amount of Rob's money is 8 to 3. If Rob had $280 before the last competition, how much does Rob have now that he lost the bet? Okay, before you begin, take a step back, read the problem again, figure out what the problem is about, and then underline the question so you know what you're trying to find, and go ahead and begin. All right, hopefully you got the right answer. Here's how I figured out my answers. It was a complicated question because you had to think about, and that's why pulling the information out helps a lot. Before the last bet, and then the latest competition were the 2 different sets of ratios we had. So before the last bet, the ratio was the amount of money that Tom had and the amount of money that Rob had. And that ratio was 4 to 7. Tom's money after the latest competition, the ratio changed, and Tom's money to Rob's money was 8 to 3. Then they gave us information that Rob had $280 before the last competition. So that goes over here. Once I have this information, I can then draw 2 tape diagrams and fill out all the stuff. So I first started with just 2 tape diagrams, and I remembered that if we look at the parts on this ratio, it is 7 parts and 4 parts, and that is 7, 8, 9, 10, 11 parts, and then 8 parts and 3 parts, and that was 8, 9, 10, 11. So the parts all came up to the same whole, having being 11. So that told me that all the numbers in between that are inside the box will be the same number. That's how I was able to figure that out. Then I took the 280, and that was the amount of money that Rob had before the last bet, and that goes in this tape diagram here. So 280, I divided that by 7, and that's where I got my 40 from. And then I put 40 inside each one because they're all going to be the same. And then I was able to figure out how much money everybody had. And then I went back to the question. how much does Rob have now that he lost the bet? So now would be the latest competition, and Rob lost the bet. Not so much an important thing, but how much money he has would be $120. And so our sentence should be, Rob now has $120 after losing the bet. Or you can just say Rob now has $120. That works too. Okay, so that was number 3. Let's keep moving on. Number 4. A sporting goods store ordered new bikes and scooters. For every 3 bikes ordered, 4 scooters were ordered. However, bikes were way more popular than scooters, so the store changed its next order. The new ratio of the number of bikes ordered to the number of scooters ordered was 5:2. If the same amount of sporting equipment was ordered in both orders and 64 scooters were ordered originally, how many bikes were ordered as part of the new order? Okay, again, it's a long word problem, but we have been tackling these like football. So let's go ahead and take a minute right now, or a few minutes, figure out what the problem's talking about. It's not football. And then underline the question, and then do the work. Put your answer in, and let's see if you do the same thing as I do. Okay, so here's how I figured out number 4. If the same amount of sporting equipment was ordered in both orders, that was important to know, because that's what told us again that our ratio, when you put the numbers together, that's 7 and that's 7, which told me that the parts would be the same. So we'd have equal parts, 7 equal parts in this ratio, 7 equal parts on this ratio, and that's important to keep in mind. Okay, I also underlined how many bikes were ordered as part of the new order. So my old ratio would be the old order, my new ratio would be the new order. Then I just took the information out. Bikes to scooters was 3:4 in the old ratio, or the old order. And bikes to scooters in the new ratio, or the new order, was changed from 5:2 because they I don't know why. They were more popular. So then what they gave us was that there were 64 scooters ordered originally. Originally is the key word there for the old order. These are some languages that we need to make sure we understand. So originally refers to the first order, which would be the old order in this case. So our 64 goes to the scooter. I then took 64, divided it by the 4 parts here, and I found that I have 16. So 16 goes into these parts, means 16 also goes into these parts. So when I did all the math, and I did 3 times 16, I got 48. When I did 5 times 16, I got 80. And when I did 2 times 16, I have 32. The question only asked me, though, how many bikes were ordered as part of the new order. So the new order would be the new ratio, and the bikes is the top one. And so I have to answer the question. I can't just leave this work and call it a day. I have to go back and answer this question. 80 bikes were ordered as part of the new order. Okay, so what we're going to do for number 5 and 6 is I'm going to just give you the answer, and then you're going to explain what happened, how you figured yours out. Just like I've explained mine with the past 2, you're going to explain 5 and 6. So you're only going to get the right answer. You won't see how I did it. Okay, starting with 5. At the beginning of grade 6, the ratio of the number of advanced math students to the number of regular math students was 3:8. However, after taking placement tests, students were moved around, changing the ratio of the number of advanced math students to the number of regular math students to 4:7. How many students started in regular math and advanced math if there were 92 students in advanced math after the placement test? Okay, so there's a couple of questions here. Make sure you answer them correctly. How many students started in regular math and advanced math if there were 92 students in advanced math after the placement test? Now that you've figured out the answer for number 5, assuming you got it correct, if you didn't get it correct, go ahead and try to figure out the correct way, because next I'm going to ask you to tell me what you did to find your answer. So if you didn't get it correct, I would like you to take the correct answer and try to figure out where maybe you went wrong, so that when you write down what you did, you can write down the correct way of doing it. Now for number 6, it says, during first semester, the ratio of the number of students in art class to the number of students in gym class was 2 to 7. However, the art classes were really small and the gym classes were large, so the principal changed students' classes for second semester. In second semester, the ratio of the number of students in art class to the number of students in gym class was 5 to 4. If 75 students were in art class second semester, how many were in art class and gym class first semester? Okay, when you figure this one out, write your answer, check it on Edpuzzle, and if you have the correct answer, then you'll be able to explain what you did to get that answer. Let's just move this up so you have it to look at completely. Okay, so hopefully you answered the correct answer for how many were in art class and gym class first semester. You're going to go ahead and write how you figured out your answer. If you got the wrong answer, your job is to write the correct answer down now that you know what it is and see where you went wrong. And go ahead and write about that. I still want to see all the steps that you should have done. Make sure to put them in writing. Okay, for our last question, it says, Jeanette wants to save money, but she has not been good at it in the past. The ratio of the amount of money in Jeanette's savings account to the amount of money in her checking account was 1 to 6. Because Jeanette is trying to get better at saving money, she moves some money out of her checking account and into her savings account. Now the ratio of the amount of money in her savings account to the amount of money in her checking account is 4 to 3. If Jeanette had $936 in her checking account before moving money, how much money does Jeanette have in each account after moving money? Remember, put all the information out. Go ahead and label your information. And let's put this on the same one so you can see it better. Label your information. Leave nothing unlabeled. This will be our last question for the lesson, and then you'll have an exit ticket. Thank you. Okay, one last time. Now that you have the answer, check and see if your answer is correct. And the next question on Edpuzzle will be, how did you find your answer? Put as much detail as you can so that I can see you know what you're doing. Thank you. And then get ready for your exit ticket. So our lesson summary today is very simple. When solving problems in which ratio between two quantities changes, it is helpful to draw before tape diagrams and after tape diagram. That said, let's look at your exit ticket. Now for your exit ticket, you only have to write in the answer or choose the correct answer, and then you don't have to explain how you did it. I will have seen that in the past 3 or 4. Students surveyed boys and girls separately to determine which sport was enjoyed the most. After completing the boys' survey, it was determined that for every 3 boys who enjoyed soccer, 5 boys enjoyed basketball. The girls' survey had a ratio of the number of girls who enjoyed soccer to the number of girls who enjoyed basketball of 7 to 1. If the same number of boys and girls were surveyed, and 90 boys enjoyed soccer, how many girls enjoyed each sport? Okay, figure out your answer, and this is the end of this lesson. Thank you.